We are live. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Life with Shenita. And I am absolutely not Shenita. I am your guest host this evening. I'm Dr. Sara Williams. I have been on the show several times, so you know me as the clinical psychotherapist, the celebrity therapist, and the host of Dr. Sara After Dark. But tonight, I am the guest host for Life with Shenita. And I am so excited that we have with us Tamiko Lowry Pugh. And I'm going to read her bio, and it's like so nice, and she's doing so many great things. She is Dr. Tamiko. She's wife, mother, sister, friend, and lover of all things empowering. Interesting because tonight's topic is empowerment. Professionally, she is a serial entrepreneur, author, transformational strategist, life and business coach, and a purpose-driven woman. She's a philanthropist and an empowerment influencer. Her life motto is to impact the world through speaking, teaching, coaching, and advocacy. But above all things, she is just a girl from Buffalo, New York, with really big dreams. So welcome to Life with Shenita, Tamiko. How
Thank
you
you
doing this
for
evening?
having me. I am wonderful, Dr. Sara. I'm excited about our conversation this evening.
I am as well. And we're blessed to have you and your expertise and what you can share with us about empowerment. So, first and foremost, I know I read your bio, but there's always something behind the bio. So, tell us about the woman,
Mhm.
Dr. Tamiko.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I think what you read really does describe me. I think sometimes when we talk about ourselves, we talk about our professional accomplishments, but for me, it's really empowerment is who I am at the core. I love to see people thrive. I love to see people empowered. I love, to see people walk in their purpose. And so, if you had asked me who I am, that's exactly who I am. Uh, my mentor coined me an empowerment influencer, and so I'm gonna stick with that. Empowerment influencer, really influencing people um, to empower themselves from the inside out, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially.
Yes, and it's all encompassing. It's so much more to us. And kind of from a health and wellness perspective, we look at it as the dimensions of wellness. And you just captured that with the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, all those kind of dimensions culminate into who we are. I saw a quote somewhere and it said that empowered women empower women,
Yes, yes,
that you
yes,
must first
yes.
be empowered yourself. So, can you kind of tell us what is all the hype about empowerment?
So there is a lot of hype around empowerment, especially over the past few years. You see everybody having empowerment events, empowerment brunches, empowerment retreats, and all that stuff. But I believe that, again, that empowerment comes from within. It's about connecting your values with your purpose and just really making sure that you are actually, not only are you empowered, but you are empowering other people. Like you said, the quote says, empowered women empower women. And so many times in life, we go through things, right? We go through different adversities and challenges. And our power is somehow stripped away from us. And for me, it was being in an abusive marriage, and I felt like my power was stripped away from me. I remember getting out of that relationship, but I still felt powerless. And so that's when I really started living the empowered life. That's the name of my company, Living the Empowered Life LLC. And it was really built on my personal experience of not even the abuse, but just being in a career that was unfulfilling. I felt powerless. And I think we feel powerless in different areas of life. In order to get your power back, you have to become empowered, right? And so um, I have a couple of, when I think about being empowered and living an empowered life, there are 6 pillars that I came up with for living the empowered life. One of them is to face your fears or feel the fear and do it scared. The other one is living life according to your values, not everyone else's, but what are the things that are valuable to you, and not just material value, but what is really valuable? What do you find value and what are your morals? And living your life by those. The other thing is purpose. Are you
Mhm.
living a life of purpose? Are you tapping into your divine purpose or your God given purpose? Igniting your confidence is the fourth one. Number five is to walk in your authentic power. We all sometimes I think that when we are rebuilding our lives or starting over from something that we've gone through that took our power away, we don't know how to be authentic. So the other pillar is walking in your authentic power. So there's five. I said there's six, but those are the five.
Yes. And there's so many variables that we face as women these days that kind of counteract our ability to walk in our purpose and be our authentic selves. And one of those variables, of course, is the need for the social media presence and the need for the public persona and the need to have a brand
Mm-hmm.
and the need to have this influencer type of a mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all basically an outward appearance. And
It
if
is.
you are not inwardly confident, then it's all not necessarily authentic. It's fake.
I
And
totally
how
agree
long
with
does it
that.
last?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think social media has us in a place where we think we have to pretend.
Yes.
There's this persona that you have to look or show up a certain way. My relationship looks like this
Yeah.
on social media, but what does it look like in my household? On social media, I'm looking excited and I'm happy, and
Yeah.
my outfit, everything is in point. I'm filtered to the T, like I look good, right? But how do I feel on the inside?
Mhm.
And so I think we really have to focus on who we are at the core, and again, not who society thinks we should be or what we think society thinks we should be and how we're showing up. And so I'll give an example. When I first started coaching and teaching and speaking, I wasn't authentically me. I imitated other people. I mean, they were amazing speakers and coaches and all that stuff. They were amazing. But I wasn't being my authentic self. I thought I had to show up a certain way with my hair
Yeah.
perfectly straight, with a two-piece suit on, and that's really not
Mhm.
my personality. I love colors, and I wear my hair in my natural curls, and I like ripped jeans. Like there's just certain things that I like. That's Tamiko. That is authentic to me. And I used to try to speak, and I speak proper anyways, but I would try to enunciate every word, and on stage, it just wasn't authentic. But when I became who I am supposed to be, the person God calls me to be, which is witty and goofy and funny, and, I
Yes.
like old school hip hop. So if I'm on stage, I might bust a rhyme or whatever the case may be. Being your authentic self is going to help someone else.
Yes. And I think the emergence of individuals that are empowerment coaches that are willing to be that transparent have the greater impact
Hmm.
and will have the longevity. Because, like you said in the beginning, that there was this wave of all these empowerment workshops and gurus were just cropping up everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's almost like you did a Google search and you found some catchphrases, and there you are in front of an audience of women taking command of their interpersonal space
Hmm.
and basically leading them into what is known as empowerment. And you haven't done the work yourself, and it's not authentic. You are emulating what you think you're supposed to be. It's a chase for popularity. And from a psychotherapeutic perspective, for me, when I see that, I see your trauma showing up.
Ooh, that is so. I just got chills from what you said. One of the things you said was you haven't done the work yourself. And I think so often we just jump out there and we haven't done the work. And I always hear people say, Tamiko, I see you advocating, and I see you at the state capitol, and you speak on behalf of domestic violence victims. I want to do what you do. And I'm like, really? Because it was a lot of work
Yeah.
to do what I do. I actually had to go through the abuse, almost lost my life. Then after that, I had to literally I had to do the work. I had to regain my confidence. I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn who I was. I had to understand what my life purpose was. I didn't just wake up and say, I want to speak on behalf of domestic
Right.
violence victims. I didn't wake up and do
Yeah.
that. This was something that I was purposed to do. And I think we have to understand the difference between our calling, what we're called to do, our purpose, and just wanting to do something because it's popular.
Correct. And that need for popularity, again, is that innate loss somewhere where you lost your power, either through child abuse, domestic violence, some other type of trauma, sexual assault. Somewhere, someone took something from you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a tool or a vehicle to try to regain that. Unfortunately, empowerment professionals and even therapists at times can do more harm than good when they are not prepared, when they are ill-informed about what the process takes in order for you to become an emotional leader in such a space as empowerment. I think that's been one of my biggest arguments, is that there are times and situations where people find themselves at these workshops and the empowerments because this lady has books and she looks great and I want to be her and I want to do her what she does. But this person secretly is suffering. They're not prepared for the audience of which they've captured.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
see these desperate attempts to kind of maintain that platform. And I'm sure you've been a victim of it. I've been a victim of it. Well, someone's seeing you and they try to emulate what you do. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, the statement was, "Oh, I want to do
Right.
what you
Yeah.
do." And I'm like, to first of all, to be Dr. Sarah, I didn't just come out the womb like this. Yes,
Right.
I went through college, I took all the exams, I went to graduate school, I did this, but I also found myself on my face crying, in
Yeah.
grief stricken and depressed, and had to pull myself out of that. And so there is a connection between my professional losses and grief and and my professional training that brought me to who I am.
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Tamiko, the same way. You didn't come
Absolutely.
out the womb like this. You had to go through those steps. And with that, I know that it can be engaging and it can be enticing for people when they see you and they think, "Oh, I want to be you." So, when did you know this platform would be a part of your journey? Did something happen in your life that pushed you in this direction?
Yeah. So as I stated earlier, I talked about, going through a marriage that was abusive. So going through that again, it was life altering. It was very traumatic. I've always wanted to serve. I've always had this desire to serve. I've always served in church and different organizations because I'm a servant by heart. That's just who I am, which makes this work a little bit easier because I love to serve.
Yeah.
Um, but going through that and then having to rebuild my life financially, spiritually,
Mm.
emotionally.
Yes.
And I tell people I left that relationship. I was mentally and emotionally broken, but I was also financially broke. I was so broke. I remember, you know, having this part-time job, not being able to feed my children. And I didn't, I had my peace with the Lord, but there were times where I had to take people's lunches out of the break room and take them home to feed my children. That's how broke I was.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
going through that process, I was like, I never ever want to go through this again. Better yet, I don't want to see other women have to go through this.
Mhm.
So that's when I started doing the work on myself. How do I
Right.
financially empower myself? What is it? Yeah, corporate America is cool. I ended up getting a job, making six figures as a project manager. Not too passionate about it, but it paid good money. But
Mhm.
along the way, I started building up my skill set, finishing, taking additional courses and classes and all that stuff, but really working on myself and understanding that what I went through was not for me, but it was for someone else. And so that's when I
Yes.
knew that I would. It's not that I wanted to be in the empowerment industry, right? I just wanted to
Yeah.
serve. And I launched my nonprofit organization, which focused on empowering domestic violence victims, empowering victims to become survivors. I didn't do it because I wanted to be, an inspirational influencer or empowerment guru. I did it because I wanted to serve, and I did not want to see women continue to suffer in silence. So I was like, I'm gonna help as many women as I can through my nonprofit to build their confidence, to be financially empowered, so that they're not stuck in an abusive relationship and they can't leave because they don't have the
They don't have
money,
the
or
money.
they're stuck in a career that they're unhappy with and they don't have, they're just there because. And so I built the business around my passion pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
right? My life experience, not wanting other women to have to actually suffer in silence, and go through that. And then, of course, people started reaching out for me to come and speak, and then the
Yes.
books came, and I ended up in this thing that we call empowerment. So I kind of always tell people, I think I was pushed into my purpose. It's not something I was looking for. I was just pushed into this thing. And I enjoy it. I love it. I'm grateful that I have a career,
Mm-hmm.
that I can wake up to every day and say I enjoy what I do. I get to help someone. And I get to help empower someone, or
Every day.
help them to empower themselves and give them the tools and the resources that they need.
Beautiful. It's kind of like with me, where I say that um, I didn't choose this, it chose me.
Yes.
Because I was
Yes.
always the least likely one. I was not the speaker. I was not the one that wanted to be out front.
Hmm.
I was perfectly happy in the back seat. I'm very happy with seeing other people succeed. I'm kind of the listener. And then I became a lecturer because I was a college professor first.
Hmm.
So I'm a college professor turned therapist. And it happened because of my trauma and also facing my trauma from my childhood, from my past, and then experiencing grief. And so it kind of chose me. This platform, it it chose me because I had the experience. And then similar to you, the invitation came to speak about it. And I'm like, who me? Me? You sure?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what you're asking for? And then I realized that, God gave me that assignment to choose that. And
It
so,
is. Yeah.
one of the things we wanted to know tonight was how were you utilizing your empowerment platform, and that is through your nonprofit. And I've heard you mention about financial literacy and the importance of
Hmm.
having that skill set, because that can be very disempowering. The financial challenges of women in general, we are already behind the curveball
Hmm.
starting out day one. We earn less, and we have responsibilities, and we have to do just as much.
Yes.
Toni
Yeah.
Morrison demanded equal pay in her documentary. And
Hmm.
she went to her boss and she said, guess what? I'm head of household just like you. Just like you. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm not head of household. And that's with many of us. I'm a widowed parent. So I'm head of household, but I probably would make less if I work for someone else
Hmm.
because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So with your financial literacy, can you maybe talk a little bit more about what that is? Are there classes or workshops or webinars or invitations?
Yeah. So yeah, let me kind of clean that up a little bit.
Sure.
So the financial literacy piece is work that's through the nonprofit organization for domestic violence survivors who are rebuilding their lives. We have a program where we partner with State Farm. They have an amazing
Mhm.
financial empowerment program for domestic violence survivors. So we're one of
Wow.
the
Okay.
organizations, that are allowed to teach that. So we teach that. It's a 6-week course. We do it twice a year. And that's for the nonprofit. But outside of that, so the nonprofit is the Still Standing Alliance. Outside of that, my business is Living the Empowered Life. And one of the things that we do, with Living the Empowered Life Academy, is
Mhm.
to help women, to use the expertise, their skill set, their story, right? The expertise that they already have to create a transformational business. So, what type of business can you create based off of your personal story? Can you become an author? Can you coach other people? Can you become a consultant? What is it that you can do that you already have experience with? What type of business can we help you to launch? But it's transformational. Like, how are you going to transform the lives of someone else based on your experience? So that's one of the courses that we have. We call it Coach for Purpose and Profit. So coaching for purpose and profit means that, yes, I'm doing this to make some money, but I'm also doing it because there's a purpose behind the work that I'm doing. And I like
Yeah.
to call it making money and making a difference, because I believe that we are called to serve, but why
Mm-hmm.
not get paid for it at the same time? So that's one of the programs that we have as it relates to helping people with their finances, really just tapping into who it is that you are and creating a business off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some of the other things that we do with living the empowered life, you again, it's about taking your power back. And so helping people or women, because I specifically work with women, and I say a few good men, because I have had men come in and take our classes
Yeah.
as well. But shifting your limiting beliefs. I think from a child to an adult, we go through different things in life, and we develop these limiting beliefs that prevent us from moving forward in life. And
Yeah.
so helping you to shift those limiting beliefs so that you can tap into your divine purpose and walk in your authentic power. So I do have a course that's called Radical Shifts. Radical
Mm-hmm.
Shifts, shifting your limiting beliefs so that you can tap into your divine purpose. So that's another class that teaches you get rid of those limiting beliefs. How do we shift them into something positive? And then how do we take that to allow you to tap into your divine purpose? And from that purpose, now we can come up with a plan to help you either to build some type of platform, whether that platform is going to be, advocacy work, you serving the community, a business, or whatever the case may be. So that's what living the empowered life is really all about.
Yes. What I'm hearing too is that there is a focus on essentially focusing not just on getting a job. I've seen a lot of work with domestic violence individuals where they are the work, the program is focused on job readiness,
Mm-hmm.
skills, that kind of thing. But it's important because when someone experiences that kind of trauma, they have an identity loss. They've
Yeah.
lost themselves. They don't even remember what their talents are, what their skills are, what they're good at doing, who they are, that they have the confidence to go out there and speak
Yes.
and be an advocate, to have a job that is in leadership or authority. I've worked with individuals that are domestic violence victims, and they have more education than me,
Mm-hmm.
and they've lost themselves
Yes.
completely. So when we
Yes.
get past the trauma work and any existing mental health issues, then empowerment is critical, because it is about the confidence. It is about the understanding that you have a purpose, you have a plan, and what happened to you is not who you are,
That's right.
essentially.
That's right. And I
Right.
love that you mentioned you've worked with domestic violence victims or survivors who probably would have more education than you were than me, because people often think, oh, domestic violence victim, they're not educated. They come from a, poverty stricken background. Maybe
Mhm.
the abuser was an alcoholic. And in my case was not that at all.
No.
We were very well off. We lived in a huge 7-bedroom home, and he didn't drink. I was very active in church. That if you saw us, you were like, "Oh, they're the bomb." But at home, bombs were ticking,
You didn't have
pretty
any
much.
of the risk factors. That's what they
So,
call. Yeah.
yeah, yes, yeah. So we have this stereotype of what domestic violence victims would look like. People were like, "Oh, you don't look like you were a victim. And what was I supposed to look like?" You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes. One of the things that it impacts is not just the career, it is relationships
Hmm.
and trust. And because how you value yourself has a lot to do with the choices you make
Yeah.
and how you perceive in life. I think that's why a lot of times we see domestic violence victims choose another partner
Ooh.
that is equally abusive, if not worse.
Ah,
So, in your mind, we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to talk about how does love and affection play a role in your life as a high powered woman?
ooh, who put that word high powered in there? No,
I didn't do that. I'm just the host tonight.
I get it. Um, so I'm going to change that. Instead of high powered, I'll say an empowered woman.
Empowered.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah. So love, and what was it? What else did you say? How does love and
How does love and affection play a role in your life as an empowered woman?
yes. So love and affection is very important to me. Um, it's something that I felt like I probably was missing in my previous marriage that was abusive because, when people are abusive, the narcissism, right? They'll
Yeah.
intentionally withhold love and withhold affection from you uh, as a form of power and control. And I'm sure you know that. So if a person doesn't show love or affection, and I sometimes look at that as an abusive or a narcissistic type of
Mhm.
personality, and it doesn't really sit well with me. And I mean, people are the way they are because of life experiences, and I'm not blaming anyone for how they are, but those are things that are important to me. Um, Love is a
Yeah.
value. Affection is something and affection doesn't have to mean that you're touching me and all that stuff all the time, but just basic affection, hugs and things of that nature. Acknowledgement is a form of affection. Um, those are very important though, because that's how you treat a person.
Mhm.
Like that's what that's integrity. So that's how you treat people. So if you're ever in my presence, I'm gonna be affectionate. Well, it's COVID now, but I love to hug. I'm gonna always
Right.
smile. I'm always gonna greet you. I'm always gonna say something to you that's gonna empower you, from the inside out and make you feel good. So
Yes.
affection is a part of making a person actually feel good.
If someone has been abused and they have been, and touch was painful by someone that was supposed to have loved them, then it upsets the dynamics
Hmm.
of what love and affection is supposed to be. And when I do run across people, because I am a touchy, hugger, and I meet no strangers, um and they some people draw back. There's an immediate response to that.
Hmm.
That's neurological, because that's the brain saying I need to protect myself. So
Yes.
immediately I think about, who hurt you. someone
Hmm.
someone hurt you, someone that you trusted, um hurt you. And it is difficult to accept love and affection if there's a lacking of values. So if you work with individuals that say they've been involved in domestic violence situations and they're in recovery, because it's
Hmm.
surviving and becoming the new person after domestic violence, you are recovering. Um, how does empowerment tie into addressing that, the need for love and affection, but the fear of it at the same time?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with trust. That has a lot to do with um, yeah, I think it's a lot to do with trust. And I'll even just use my personal experience, coming out of that relationship, I didn't trust anyone. And
Right.
so it was more so let me just go back because you made a statement earlier and I wanted to say something about it. You said a lot of victims come out of relationships and then they date the same type of person.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, yes, same person, different face. And I did that 2 times after I left my ex-husband. The next 2 people that I dated, same person,
Mhm.
different face. And I was like, what in the heck am I doing? Um, and so it wasn't until I understood that after that, I was like, okay, I am, there's something that I'm giving off that I'm attracting the same type of person. Um, it wasn't until I wrote my first book, Wounds to Wisdom, that I had to go all the way back to the beginning of my childhood to figure out why do I keep doing this? And I didn't realize that there was abuse from grandma, my mom,
Mhm.
and so it was kind of something that probably not a limiting belief, but what's the other word that we use? Um, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Anyways, um, moving forward, so I'm trying to get back to your question about love and affection.
Yeah.
It took me a minute. The person that I'm married to now, he's the most loving man. He's totally
Mhm.
opposite from my ex-husband, and I almost ran him off because of trust, and not knowing what I valued as it relates to love and affection, and I was afraid to receive that from him. It was almost like, I don't trust you. You too nice. What's behind that smile? What's behind
Yeah.
all this niceness? So I really didn't trust him. And I remember him saying, after you do the work, I was in the middle of writing my book when we were dating. He said, when you're done with that book, I feel like part of your healing is going to come from that and you'll be ready.
Mhm.
And sure enough, again, because when I wrote the book, I had to go all the way back to the beginning and I had to see myself throughout the years, which really helped me to transform my life. But after that, I was actually ready. But yeah, so a lot of domestic violence victims or survivors, there's that trust factor. And we
Yeah.
always think that there's something behind that smile. You're not supposed to be
Mhm.
this nice. This is not how, this is not normal because we're not used to it. So,
Yes, and for some reason, when you were speaking, the term familiar fear came to mind,
mm, mm, mm,
meaning, okay, what I'm experiencing, I might be a little anxious and fearful because it's new, it's normal, it's comfortable. This person doesn't hit me or harm me. But the domestic violence victim unconsciously replicates the same pattern because the individual they met is has a familiar fear pattern. They can identify with those triggers somewhat
mhm.
versus someone that's new because no one's perfect. But at the same time, especially if it's a nice guy and he doesn't have any abusive qualities, then the domestic violence victim also may question, well, what does he want with me?
Yes.
Because as you mentioned early, you've lost your self-esteem, your
Mhm.
confidence, you don't like yourself, you've been robbed of your identity. So if someone has some normalcy and respect for you and regard for you, then you're like, you really don't have a connection to that. You had to relearn that, like riding a bicycle again.
Absolutely. And even though I had already started to do the work, I remember, when we were dating, I was like, I remember when he first asked me out, my husband now, when he first asked me out on a date, I was like, Kenny Pugh asked me out on a date. What does he want with me? I had these feelings of not being good enough because, he had his radio show, he had written books, and he was this so-called relationship guru writing for Black Enterprise and was on stage with, spoke at the Pirates House with TD Jakes. And I was like, what do you want with me though?
Yeah,
Like I'm just regular. I've gone through this abusive
I'm not good
relationship
enough. Yeah.
and I had these feelings of not good enough. Even though I had
Mhm.
already started doing the work, I was already walking in my purpose and speaking on stage, but there was just, when it came to the relationship piece, I didn't feel like I was good enough for him. And I remember 3 years into the marriage, us having a conversation. I think we got into a little dispute about something. And I said something like, you don't think I'm good enough. And he's like, where did that come from?
Oh, yeah.
I asked you out on a date. So you were what I wanted. And that's when I think about, walking in your authentic power, being authentically who you are. It's because, I thought because he was in ministry that he was looking for somebody that was just astute and upright and, had it going. They didn't have no issues. And he was like,
Mhm.
no, I love the way you handle adversity. I know that you've been through some stuff, and I know that when we go through some stuff, that we're going to be able to tough it out together because you've overcome so much, and that's attractive to me. And I was like, wow, the thing
Right.
that I thought was my weakness was actually my strength.
Exactly. And verbal, see, physical abuse cannot coexist without emotional or attack on who you are and your self-esteem. So when you were like, what does this nice man want with me? Because you have been conditioned and trained through constant, probably negative comparisons, that you weren't good and
Yeah.
deserving of the abuse, because the abuser can't succeed unless you participate in it. And that's a hard discussion to have when I do therapy groups
Yeah.
with victims,
Mm-hmm.
that you enabled the abuse also. And
Mm-hmm.
it's even painful for me to say it, but it's true
Yeah. And I
that
always have
we
to say,
right, you
what
participated.
was your, how did you participate in this? Even have to
Yes.
ask myself that, like, what was my contribution to this relationship? How did I contribute to this abuse? And it's not victim blaming, but it's actually being able to see yourself, to see yourself in the things. How did you contribute to this? And you mentioned there can't be physical abuse without the emotional piece. Before my ex ever laid a hand on me, I was already broken. Before
Hmm.
he ever pushed me and put his hands around my neck, I was already broken from, the emotional and mental abuse and even spiritual abuse. I was, I, what do I say? It's like a broken soul. How do you heal a broken soul? You can heal a broken arm, but how do you heal a broken spirit?
Yeah.
Everything heals, but it was just like my spirit was just broken. And I just remember just looking down. I looked older then. I was in this was over 10 years. It's been like 14 years actually. It's been this year. Last year, I made 14 years, I think. I was in my early 30s and I looked at like I was in my 50s. Now that I'm, in my late 40s, I feel like now I look like I'm in my 30s because of the stress too.
Right.
The stress. I mean, if I look at photos back 14 years ago, I look like a totally different person. There
You
was
don't
no
recognize
light.
yourself.
There was no light, and
Hmm.
I just looked dark and sad. Like, oh,
I have literally walked past people and I spoke to them and they said, "Excuse me, do I know you?" And I said, "I'm Sarah." And they go, "Oh my God." They didn't recognize me at all. And I look at pictures of myself from different aspects of my life and different times. And of course, I call them seasons.
yes,
And I don't recognize myself.
yeah,
And I just, of course, give the glory to God, because I said, I survived so many things that were designed to kill me, to
yeah,
destroy me as a person, destroy my character, and most importantly, to destroy the assignment and the destiny that's been placed in my life. Because if I was to give up, then I would not be here to somehow empower other women.
yes,
And it's always such an honor, to be in the space with women that share that same assignment. I love the fact that it's so many of us. I do.
yes,
I'm kind of weird. I don't feel competition. I don't feel jealousy. I don't feel those things. I see so much light coming from you, and I see so many women that are going to be led into a new life because of your story and your willingness to share it.
yeah.
Um, is there any advice that you would give to the audience about living an empowered life?
You know what? I would say this: living an empowered life, and you've heard me mention values before. It's really about honoring yourself. And honoring yourself is a part of self-care. It's about of taking care of yourself. It's about believing in yourself. So, empowerment is about honoring yourself unapologetically, because I used
Mhm,
to be ashamed when I
mhm.
honored myself or when I did self-care or didn't know how to say no to people, right? So, honoring yourself, that's the first thing. Honoring yourself, honoring your values. When you do things that are out of alignment with your values, you're going to be
Right.
unfulfilled, you're going to be unhappy. It's just not going to work out. But if you function in a sense where my job is in alignment with my values, my relationship is in alignment with my
Mhm.
values, life is just so fulfilling. So don't sacrifice your values, right? So honoring yourself, your values, expressing your talents and your gifts. What are the talents and the gifts that God has placed in you
Right.
that you can give back to the world? I think empowerment is not all, it's not always about people pouring into us, but it's about what we can give back to the community. And so what are those gifts and those talents that God has placed in you that you can give back through philanthropy, volunteering, maybe
Mhm.
nonprofit, or
Mhm.
maybe it's a part of your business, but how are you expressing those talents and gifts? Don't hide them. Don't keep them in. They're there for a reason, and they're for you to share with the world.
I had an experience where it was shortly after my husband died, because my mother passed away and then my husband passed away. And I was really stricken with grief.
Mm.
And it was complicated, very complicated grief. And someone said to me, well, if you maybe start volunteering, joining or speaking to others about grief, then you'll start feeling better. Now, this is a time where, like, say, my spouse passed in November, and this was probably around January that this
Mhm.
person made this statement to me, like 3 months. Okay. And I just kind of looked at her like, I can barely get out of bed right now. I am not even ready to face life
Yeah.
with all the challenges I have, 2 children, and I'm pretty isolated in this struggle. And there were so many challenges, everything coming at me, left, right, you name it. The job, just seemed like everything was just in turmoil. And I was emotionally and physically exhausted,
Mhm.
and I needed help.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to console me and help me and lift me up. And this person's response was, because I'm considered a high performing professional or what have you, well, if you start speaking and talking to other people and volunteering, you'll feel better. I wasn't ready.
You weren't ready.
I was nowhere near ready. So, how did you know when you were ready to take the platform of being an empowerment professional?
That's a great question. I knew that I was ready when I could. I guess I could. Now I don't want to say manage my emotions, but when I could share my story without getting overly emotional, and I can share it in a compelling way that was going to empower someone else, rather than me sharing my story and breaking down in the middle of it. Because at that point, I'm not really empowering anyone. They like, oh, I feel so sorry for her. But once I got to a place where I can actually talk about it and I can laugh at some of that stuff, I knew I was ready. I knew that I was ready because in order to really share your story, yeah, it's okay. And I do, I get emotional. There are times when I do get emotional and I do cry. It's very authentic, but in order for me to share it and compelling, and in order for it to really do what it needs to do, I have to have been healed. Yeah.
Yes,
I have to
that's a
have
good
gone through
word.
that healing process. And I can tell when a person hasn't gone through a healing process and they're sharing a story because they sound bitter, they sound angry. Not only are you
Yeah.
crying, but you sound angry, you still sound pissed off. No, we can't do that because now you're putting this negative energy out here. We need people to be uplifted. And so I there's plenty of time I tell people you're not ready to share. You're still angry.
Yeah.
You're still healing.
And you
Um
know how I
yeah.
can identify the unhealed empowerment professional or
Mm,
therapist or what have you is they may be able to take that stage, not cry, not get emotional, but in other elements of their life or anyone that triggers their envy or jealousy or challenges them, they are horrible people.
mhm. And you can't be in
They
empowerment
are
if
horrible
you
people.
be
They are
mean.
horrible in business. They are horrible to their children, their colleagues,
Yes.
their spouses. how are you in your, you can tell if a person's really healed by how they are. Now, granted, we're not perfect around the clock. We are not. We have our challenges. We're humans, and we just to be transparent, we all have our days.
We have our days.
But watch how someone moves outside of when they have that microphone and that light in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And that normally is an indication to me of really where they are spiritually. Never mind they have 20,000 followers and they have a platform. How are they? Are they good? Are they good people? Are they
Yeah.
trusting? Do they trust others? I
That's
had a
too deep.
situation where someone apologized to me recently, and she admitted, she said, I didn't realize that I still have a trouble trusting women, trusting
Wow.
Black women, other
Mm.
women. And this makes me want to cry talking about it, because it was one of those sister moments where that could have ended in disaster.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was not a good situation, and I never spoke about it. I didn't confront her about it and go, girl, why you do me like that? I let her have that space, and she came to me, and she was genuine, and she said, I just haven't learned how to trust women. So when I run across someone that is not going to do harm to me in any way, you're not trying to do anything bad to me. I didn't know how to accept that. I didn't know how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, isn't that awesome? That's an empowerment moment. You know
That
how Oprah
is.
has aha moments?
Yeah,
That was an empowerment moment.
it
Can you
is.
share with us an empowerment moment that you've had?
Whew, an
Probably so
empowerment.
many you can't even
I
name.
know. So let me think of an empowerment moment. An empowerment moment. There are so many because I feel so blessed that I have the opportunity to serve with and be around some amazing women. Um, I remember being on a retreat a couple of years ago. We were in Mexico, and we talked about one of the what is it that you brought here with you that you don't want to take back home? And when you're the person who empowers all the time,
Yeah.
you're not used to someone else really pouring back into you that much, that often. We have to, though. I mean, I have a therapist, and I have a coach and all that stuff, but
Mhm.
sometimes you pour out so much. And I just remember almost being embarrassed to share, because I'm like, all these powerhouse women, I got to share with them what I don't want to take back. Like, I got to be vulnerable in front of them.
Right.
I could do that in front of my clients and stuff, but I'm like, okay,
Yes.
these women got it going on. And I said, I don't want to take back um, that feeling of not being good enough.
Mhm.
Because I was with all these women on this trip who were multimillionaires. And I was like, how I get in this circle? Because I'm not a
In
millionaire
this room?
yet.
No.
So I was like, I
This
want to take,
space.
when I go back to Atlanta, I don't want to take back that feeling of not being good enough. And I just remember my friend just pouring into me. Who told you you weren't good enough? And I was like, when y'all are a little bit different, I was like, I got my start because of domestic violence. And they like, so who told you you weren't good enough because you were a victim of domestic violence and that's how you got your platform?
Right.
Why do you think? So just having all them pour into me, and I remember everybody prayed over me, and I just felt so free after that. I just felt so free, and it was like in my vulnerability, being vulnerable. So being able to be vulnerable around other women is really important to me. I didn't realize it until that moment. So being able to have a community that I felt safe around, because we think, I'm like, they all powerhouses, but at the end of the day, we all have something that we brought there that we did not want to bring back home. And some of that stuff was deep. I thought mine was because I went first, and then I was like, ooh, okay. So that's an empowerment moment, though, just being around other women who you consider their powerhouses, but they have stuff too. We all had stuff,
Yeah.
but we all poured into each other.
Yes. And the fact that you felt like you didn't measure up and you're all sitting there sharing, and it helped you understand and realize your own value and how we all have stuff, and just being in a circle, like being in an affirming circle,
Yes.
whether it's a retreat, um, at this point, a virtual circle, something that allows you that opportunity, because that aspect of our life is important. It's outside of our husbands and our family members. We need those affirming experiences that tells us that we're good, that we're not alone, that there are others that will support us and uphold us, and just reminding us of our own value, because we miss that, we lose that, we forget that
Mhm.
in our
Yeah.
experiences when we, especially when we become mothers, constantly doubting yourself. I I was a late mom, and then I had twins, and I was always feeling like I'm not doing something right.
Oh, no. Yeah.
This one keeps crying, and that I'm not a good mom. And what if they grow up and hate me? And, I had all these insecurities. And I start listening to my children now, and they speak such affirming language about their mom.
Yeah.
And now they're growing up and wanting to go and do their own thing in life. And they say things to me like, I want to take my mom with me, like when my son wants to go overseas and travel. And he said, well, I want my mom to come with me. And I'm like, I must not be that bad.
Yeah.
So that is an empowerment
Yes.
moment for me. So tell us about your book and what it's like to be a self-published author of a best-selling book and to own a publishing company.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I have a publishing company too, y'all.
Yeah, you left that out. My God, that's big.
So
Now
that's
you
all a part of.
now wait, let me jump on you, right. Let me say something. Now that is an example. You are a beautiful, smart, intelligent, and you're so humble. And it makes you the absolute most beautiful candidate to be an empowerment professional,
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
because that
Thank
is
you.
amazing. So yes, tell us about your publishing company.
Yes. So the book, I have a couple of books. Wounds to Wisdom, I consider that the book because that was my first book. Wounds to Wisdom, I'm Still Standing. The name of my nonprofit is Still Standing. And so that was based off of Psalms 62 and 2. He is my rock and my salvation. Um, I shall not be moved, like I'm still standing. So, Wounds to Wisdom, I'm Still Standing was really me sharing my personal story of being the wounds and the trauma that we go throughout life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from a child leading up to my adult life, getting into this toxic, abusive relationship, and then being able to overcome that. So that's what the Wounds to Wisdom is about, turning your wounds into wisdom. And what is the lesson in that thing that you went through? Because oftentimes, if we don't learn the lesson, we repeat the same thing over and over. Like when I talked about same man, different face,
Right.
right? Repeating that same thing. So turning your wounds into wisdom. It came in Amazon, became a #1 bestseller on Amazon. My publishing company is Still Standing Publishing, and it's also based off of that Psalm 62 and 2. And we specifically help women who have inspirational stories of overcoming life's adversities. Hence, you're still standing,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's Still Standing Publishing. So whether it's a self-help book, a memoir, a devotional. So we do self-help book, self-help devotionals, and memoirs. So anything where you're actually sharing your story, or you're taking your whatever it is that you've gone through to help someone else. So I'm really particular about that. I know that's the vision that God gave me, and so I interview everyone. Some people are like, "Oh, you publish books, publish my book," and I'm like, let's talk about this
Mm-hmm.
first. There's an interview process. Why did you write the book? Who was it for? What's the purpose of it? Like, I need to know all that to make sure that it fits the person that I'm supposed to be serving in this area. So that's what Still Standing Publishing does.
Okay. Well,
Publish books for
beautiful.
those
Thank
who
you.
are still
So I
standing.
know everyone is excited. And if you would please share with us your business and contact information, so that anyone that is interested in maybe scheduling time for empowerment or to interview for your publishing company or donate to your nonprofit or support you in some way, they know how to reach out to you.
Yes, so everything is on my website, TamikoLowry.com. Uh, my social media is the same all across the board at Tamiko Lowry Pugh. And I do want to share that I have a retreat coming up in May. It's called the Self-Care Retreat for Life Coaches and Heart-Centered Entrepreneurs. A heart-centered entrepreneur is someone like you and I, Dr. Sara. We pour into
Yes.
people. We do heart-centered work. I think that we have to pour back into ourselves. So the self-care retreat is
Mm-hmm.
in May. And that's also on the website, TamikoLowry.com/retreat. The theme is nourishing the soul of you and your business. It is going to be in person. It's limited to 12 people. We have COVID restrictions. All that stuff is on the website. So I'm really, really excited about that. Just being able to get away, and it's going to be awesome. But everything's on TamikoLowry.com. You can go there, click the link for book publishing, and you can get on my calendar and we can talk about getting your story out so you can make a difference in the world.
Well, I'm going to race to your website as soon as we're done with this interview. That sounds like that would be perfect opportunity for me to connect and get fulfillment because we cannot pour from an empty cup.
Not pour from an empty cup. Mm-mm.
No, we cannot. Um, in terms of this is Black History Month, in the last 2 minutes that we have, can you share with us empowerment and how Black history, the evolution of who we are as a people in relationship to empowerment and our Blackness?
So February is Black History Month, and we know that every day is Black History for us because we're always making history. But as it relates to empowerment, I think about all the women who have made a difference in the world, Black women, and I think about like Ida B. Wells and um, Michelle Obama and Maya Angelou and Sojourner Truth and all those people who actually paved the way, who did things and contributed to us in an empowering way, because all of it is empowerment. So when I
Yeah.
think about Black history, we have a very rich history. It is very empowering. Every time I pick up a book or I read something about our history, I'm empowered from that. And there are specific people that give me empowerment. People like Michelle Obama, right?
Hmm.
People, you know, like Maya Angelou that we can grow from and become empowered from.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much. It has been a delight to meet you and learn more about empowerment and what that truly means. I can imagine that there have been a lot of hearts that have been touched by your story and by your authenticity. And I am amazed. And I do look forward to connecting with you further. And I thank you so much for sharing with us and sharing your story on Life with Shenita. Thank everybody for tuning in. This is Dr. Sara Williams. I was your guest host of Life with Shenita. And make sure you join Shenita each Thursdays on Facebook at 7 p.m. And she always has some awesome, awesome guests. If you want to get in touch with me, I am Dr. Sara Williams on Instagram at drsara.w. I have also placed my website so that if you would like to reach out to me for individual therapy, that's individual marriage or family therapy, as well as mental health coaching. I'm also a trauma and grief specialist. As a widow myself, I can definitely connect to the process of grief and overcoming. So, everybody have a fabulous evening, a Thursday evening. God bless you and good night.
Good night.
Good night.